I was assigned at my university to research a religion and write a 6-page essay. I decided to write about Eckankar because my teacher has no knowledge of that religion, and I thought that I should share it with you as well, my audience. Most of the statements I would make are based on my own diligent research over the years where I was an adept of Eckankar. Most of the evidence that I would need to prove what I'm saying, you can no longer find them on the internet. There has been rumors of Eckankar leadership has been taking legal action to suppress other websites and videos exposing them. It seems that they have succeeded. I can provide book titles at the end of this video that can prove what I am saying, but unfortunately, no websites. I have been an adept of Eckankar for 6 years, but I have practiced this religion from 1996 to 2008. From that point of time, I continued reading Paul Twitchell's books, founder of Eckankar, and practicing contemplation or meditation until 2016, where I no longer felt the desire to read or have anything to do with the religion. And on December of the same year, I was officially excommunicated. The irony of this is that my mother is still an active member of Eckankar along with my brother. That twice a month I must accompany her to their religious gathering because of their location being too far. And I don't feel it being safe to let my mother travel such a distance. And in addition, I volunteer in many ways by helping finding location, bringing in food, or even donating money for the activities. Eckankar is a monotheistic, non-profit religious movement founded by John Paul Twitchell in 1965 in San Francisco, California. The ultimate goal of an Ekis, or adept of Eckankar, is to release oneself from the bond of reincarnation and karma by realizing self-realization, which is 6th initiation, and maybe God realization, which is 12th initiation in one's lifetime. Therefore, one realizes this feat by singing the mantra Hugh, called contemplation, and by trying to do good deeds in order to create less bad karma. The only leadership recognized in the religion is the living master, who's reached God realization, or the Mahanta, the living God, or 13th initiate. Hence, you can conclude that Paul Twitchell was the first publicly acknowledged Mahanta of Eckankar in 1965. He was born in Paducah, Kentucky on October 23rd, 1909, where he grew up and went to high school. At a very young age, Paul Twitchell himself claimed that he has been exposed to practices of astral projection by his father, Jacob Noah Twitchell, and his sister, Catherine K.D. Twitchell, which you can find and reference in My Soul I Am Free. In the 1930s, he pursued his collegiate studies, but without graduating. And in 1942, he joined the Naval Reserve, where he was honorably discharged as a lieutenant, and before having the chance of being promoted to lieutenant commander in year 1945. Then Twitchell moved to New York with his first wife, Camille Below, where he began his search for a spiritual master. A letter to Gail, Twitchell shared to his wife that he read hundreds of books, where he would devour all the knowledge he acquired. he told how he would often travel with his sister, KD, to India and investigate several religious cults, although it was proven by KD's close friend that Twitchell and KD never left the United States until 1942 when he joined the Naval Reserve. In 1950, he joined the Self-Revelation Church of Absolute Monism. This church greatly influenced Twitchell's and his spiritual seeking, and he practiced their belief for 5 years as he was their editor. In year 1958, he became a member of the Church of Scientology and stayed active for 3 years, where he achieved the rank grade 5 or Claire. It is only on October 1955 that Paul Twitchell seemed to have found a true spiritual master in Guru Kirpal Singh teachings, whom he stayed a follower until 1963, where he planned on creating his own religion movement, Eckankar, here in the United States. And it seems that Kirpal Singh, hearing about Twitchell's spiritual movement, created a disagreement between the two of them, where they have stopped communicating ever since. Thus, it explains why, in all of his writings, Twitchell referred to Guru Kirpal Singh as Ek-Master Sudar Singh instead. Like Christians believe in angels, Ekis believe in Ek-Masters, who are there to assist them on their spiritual journey. So, Paul Twitchell stayed the spiritual leader of Eckankar until 1971, where he was allegedly poisoned. He died on September 17, 1971, without choosing a successor. Darwin Gross, who was Twitchell's most influential prodigy, was immediately promoted as the new leader of Eckankar and became the new living Ek-Master, or 11th initiate. And it seemed that under the directive of Gross, the religion started to enjoy a form of golden age. Gross started appearing in talk shows to have spiritual debates, and in his endeavor, he attracted millions of followers from around the world. You can no longer find Darwin Gross's spiritual debates on YouTube. However, on October 1981, Gross became gravely sick, and he had to appoint Harold Clamp as the new living Ek-Master. The rumor was that Harold Clamp had become the new Mahanta appointed by Ek-Master Rebazartaz, who's the equivalent of Archangel Gabriel in Christianity, and that Gross didn't want to let go of the mastership. Rumors claim that some followers became confused, for they would start seeing Clamp in their visions as the new master instead of Gross. Gross resisted the transfer of power and was therefore punished for his transgression by becoming gravely ill. Clamp became then the figure of Eckankar, while Gross was still running the corporate administration side. And in 1983, due to unproven allegations of fraud against Gross, Eckankar corporate leadership voted him out of the organization, and Harold Clamp became the official Mahanta of the religion. What also happened was that some of the followers refused to accept Clamp as the new leader of Eckankar, and therefore followed Gross instead with his own religious movement, Atom. And in 1986, Clamp then moved Eckankar's temple and headquarters from San Francisco, California to Chanhassen, Minnesota. You cannot find any YouTube video about Harold Clamp. You cannot even find any positive feedback of him on any website. Before he became the new spiritual leader of Eckankar, the religion was very popular throughout the 1970s and 1980s, attracting millions of followers from around the world. Paul Twitchell and Darwin Gross appeared regularly on television shows and religious seminars, attracting new followers by engaging in spiritual debates. You can no longer find Paul Twitchell's debates on YouTube either. Nowadays, I am not only seriously doubt this religion still has 1 million followers, but you very exceptionally can find someone who knows about it. Eckankar has succeeded in suppressing all websites and YouTube videos of Darwin Gross and of Paul Twitchell. And you will not find any recent videos about this religion on YouTube either, unless it is someone like myself pointing out what is wrong with this movement. It's no secret that the new leader of Eckankar, well, it's not new anymore, may suffer a form of schizophrenic illness. He wrote about it himself in The Wind of Change. This religion, under the leadership of Howard Klemp, is nowadays shrouded in a cloud of secrecy and paranoia, managed by a group of senile members calling themselves the clergy of Eckankar. The movement that I encountered and grew up to respect in Haiti has become a cult, with fanatical senior citizens as its sole members. You can barely find Generation Y and Generation Z being members of Eckankar, for nowadays young people have easy access to the internet and social media. They will have questioned that if you lie to them, they will easily Google search and find the answers. There are also rumors that Eckankar administration under Klemp only gives higher spiritual initiation to its biggest donors and most faithful followers, versus under the directive of Twitchell, where there were several high initiates to choose the new leader from. Albeit, the downfall of the religion didn't start with the rift between the followers of Darwin Gross and the followers of Howard Klemp, but with the revelation of Paul Twitchell's blatant plagiarism in most of his books by Dr. David Christopher Lane. Dr. Lane proved that Twitchell in some cases copied verbatim 400 paragraphs from the Great Master in India and The Path of the Masters into his own book, The Far Country. It's rumored that Twitchell stole materials from more than 50 authors. Ekis, or adept of Eckankar, still defend him by claiming that there were no regulation on copyright infringements at the time of Paul Twitchell's produced work. But plagiarism is still plagiarism, no matter how you want to present it. And you can obviously conclude that the overwhelming evidence of Paul Twitchell's actions was the reason why I stopped practicing the belief. David Lane, after writing this book, The Making of a Spiritual Movement, faced a, however, unsuccessful lawsuit in 1983 from the religion's leadership for $2.5 million. But you only need to read Letters to Get or Difficulty of Becoming the Living Egg Master, both written by Paul Twitchell, to realize that he was the embodiment of brilliant genius. Paul Twitchell was all his life a professional writer and an editor. He even was at some point a journalist, as he revealed to Gale in Letter to Gale. He habitually wrote short novels for newspapers and even wrote a few novels himself before starting his endeavor with Eckankar. After forming the religion, he wrote over 30 books, which most of them are plagiarized, of course. But after the rift of 1983, where Eckankar split into two religions, Atom, followers of Darwin Gross, and Eckankar, followers of Howell Klemp, Eckankar kept using only a dozen of his books and claimed that the rest of his work were banned with no further explanation. In reality, the truth was that Paul Twitchell, surviving widow, Gale, had married Darwin Gross a couple of years later, and in the process, she transferred ownership of most of her past husband's book to the new spiritual leader at the time, her living husband. Hence, the books were not banned, but are legally forbidden for Eckankar to ever use them. In the same manner, in an ugly legal battle that resulted in Darwin Gross being replaced by Howell Klemp as the spiritual leader, when ousted, even though he had ownership of most of Paul Twitchell's work, Gross was legally forbidden to use certain Eckankar keywords such as Eckmaster, Variag, Sogmod, and so forth. In a sense, it was a pathetic joke. Because for starters, Eckankar is a made-up word coming from the Sikh combination Ik-un-kar, supreme reality. Ik or Ek meaning one. Un meaning everything, and Kar meaning creator. You can find that in David Lane's books. The foundation of Eckankar relies on Rebazartaz, the bearer of knowledge, the Eckmaster who supposedly chooses the future leader of the religion. You might as well put him in the same figure stature with Archangel Gabriel from the Abrahamic religions. It turns out to be that Paul Twitchell, when he was in California, lived next to a street called Repasar. I even found out in my own web searching that he copied the spiritual figure from the Saint Germain Foundation. If you Google search Saint Germain, you will discover that Master Rebazartaz looks exactly the same as Saint Germain. You will also find out that the teaching of Eckankar are closely similar to the foundation of Saint Germain's belief, but Ekis will have an explanation for you. They will state that all religion came from Eckankar, and in fact, this religious movement always have existed from the beginning of time. They call the fifth initiates Mahdi, while the term is used in Islam for every messiah that reform the Islamic religion. I even got one that you can easily recognize. To be able to teach to other people, you need to receive an Arahata training. Arahata is a derivative from the Buddhist word Arhat. Paul Twitchell, no matter his genius, was a cheap fraud. And you can understand fully why I stopped practicing the religion now. And instead of owning to Paul Twitchell's errors and try to salvage his work somehow by rebranding it or changing the narrative, Eckankar's leadership has chosen to transform the religion into a nasty gumbo of secrecy, paranoia, and corrupt teachings. If you ignore his plagiarism and really pay attention to Paul Twitchell's objective through his teachings, you will gradually grow respect and compassion for what used to be his work. When my father died in 1987, I was suffering of constant violent nightmares where I would see a demon in the shape of him violating me every time I closed my eyes. I tried everything. I would recite Psalm until 3 in the morning. I would recite Ave Marias and Pater Nostrum, all with no relief. So I seek solution elsewhere. I started reading the Book of Mage, the Book of Sorceries, palm reading books, face reading. I read The Great Initiate of Albert Schuré, books on psychoanalysis, books on Freemasonry and Rose-Croix, and a portion of the Bhagavad Gita. Absolutely nothing helped me with my nightmares until I started reading The Key to the Secret Worlds and The Fruit of God of Paul Twitchell. By the time I read them, I already mastered the astral plane. But I couldn't vanquish the demon that was tormenting me every night. And once you read Paul Twitchell, he right away instilled this acknowledgement inside of you that in my soul, I am free, which is also the title of a book about him. That the Master is the embodiment of the Ek, or the Holy Spirit. That all creations of God are souls just like you, which means that I am as powerful as the demon who was tormenting me. Acknowledging that, I gradually was capable of taking control of my dream world. And when the demon came, I produced immediately a bright light in my dream that would disintegrate it into nothingness until he never appeared again. That was the true genius of Paul Twitchell. Without practicing any asanas, any yoga, or any meditation, without needing to study scriptures or asceticism for years, anybody can reach his or her spiritual enlightenment in little time. He plagiarized information at the time for the right reason, to teach the world that you do not need to follow any pastor, imam, or guru. You do not need to submit to any teaching to reach your spiritual enlightenment. When you read Letter to Gail, you realize that originally he didn't want to create a religion. No. In each of his letters, you observe a very spiritual man who loves knowledge and knows how to transmit it. Paul Twitchell was a devourer of books, like Lawrence of Arabia. He is an extraordinary flood of knowledge that obligates you to constantly educate yourself in order to keep up and understand what he is teaching. My English vocabulary and my capacity to write essays, I owe them to reading Paul Twitchell. Even my knowledge of other religions, I got it reading Letters to Oshila. And the wisdom note, he said that in order to spread the gospel of Ek, the Ekist needs to educate himself or herself about other religions to have a better chance in withstanding a spiritual debate. He mentioned in several of his books, especially The Stranger by the River, that an enlightened cannot be a spiritual master until he has the capacity to share what he or she has learned himself. It was actually Gail who encouraged Paul Twitchell to publish his work and to create a spiritual movement. When he started in California, he would give spiritual lectures and seminars or in universities. Then he created a mailing list where he would have a correspondence with those who followed him as he used to with Gail. Once he had enough followers, he felt confident enough to create a movement with the sole objective to give enlightenment to them. Paul Twitchell may be a fraud, but he was not a greedy, self-centered, self-servicing, fake spiritual master like how so many victims of cult felt for. He was an honorable man who didn't know how to share knowledge using his own words. And I will always try to salvage what I believe was his objective. Thank you. Oh, that was long.